February the 4th, 2026. Welcome back to the Two Witnesses Live. I'm your host, Watchful, and it's that time once again to get into the things that torment us the most. Well, maybe not us, but at least the world. We're going to start off today with our Fury news report. And Fury has been updating the chat. If you want to know where this is coming from, we're going to start at the top. Friday talks with Iran were canceled. Go figure. And then less than 3 hours later, they were rescheduled for Oman. Then they tried to say they only wanted to talk about nuclear options, and Rubio said that won't work. Iran wants to control the talks, and Trump and Rubio said no. We decide what we talk about, so it seems that throughout the day, the talks are back off again, and we are playing a game of on and off. We will have to monitor the situation and see how long the patience of the governments hold. This seems to be the primary thing in the news today as the world gears up for what seems to be a sure war in the Middle East between the USA and Iran. Our ultimate troll of a president, our ultimate troll of a president, has an answer to all who are removing statues and claiming stolen land. He is planning to build a statue of Christopher Columbus outside the White House. That should take everyone's mind off the war and all of the controversies for a while. Gotta love the troll. All right, hope none of y'all are taking rosuvastatin. Rosuvastatin. There's a huge recall on it, as well as atorvastatin and carvedilol, carvedilol, and metoprolol. Geez, I can't pronounce some of these names. Metoprolol. Seems the life-saving drugs we are depending on will kill us. Okay. The last two had nitrosamines, and then which are linked to cancers. Everything's linked to cancer these days. Breathing air is linked to cancer. U.S. positions aircraft carrier strike platforms across Middle East as Iran talks shift to Oman. Military buildup includes platforms that could support variety of potential strike options, defense experts say. Funny that Supreme Court blocked Texas from redistricting, but allowed California to use their new redistricting map for midterm elections, removing all Republicans from their ballots. Good Lord. Arab countries passed messages asking Trump to please not cancel meeting on Friday. Trump agreed to take the meeting because of the allies, but is skeptical of Iran. Iran said they are ready to attack Israel with 500 missiles. They've already tried to attack Israel with a bazillion missiles, and it didn't really seem to do a whole lot of good anyway. So, well, things are shaping up to fall in line for February 17th, eh? It looks like we're well on track for the opening of seal number 5, which would be, seems like the Great Tribulation, and it seems to involve the United States and Iran. Probably... I don't know. I'm kind of all over the board on what it could be, whether it's nuclear. Is this going to be the worst nuclear war we've ever seen? Clearly, it's probably shaping up to be World War III, but what does that mean? We know that there are invaders in every country around the world, many of whom are probably just waiting for the word to begin their attacks. So I don't know what the Great Tribulation is entirely, but it seems like we're fast approaching what that is. But that's what we're doing today. We are learning about Islam. We're learning about their history. We're only gonna do about 15 minutes on Trump and Elon Musk today each, or less, because I have a lot of content to get through in regards to Iran. And Islam. I have a video that I think does a pretty good job. It was recorded in 2022 of a pastor at a particular church who has spent some time in Iran and in the foreign countries where this is pertinent, and is has some pretty nice insights to kind of give a very broad overview of why these things likely apply to the end times. And I'm inclined to agree that does tend to fit better with even some of the stuff I've come up with. I'm really starting to lean away from the head wound being the United States of America, despite Trump constantly saying we were dead and now are alive. There could be some parallel meanings there, but it's shaping up to be a lot of Islamic stuff in regards to the end times, which in a lot of ways is good news because I was forming some opinions that might not be healthy, and we'll talk about those. We'll see. So let's get started with the Daily Torment Report, where we talk about the two men who are tormenting the world the most. Okay, we're going to start off with Donald Trump here. We're just going to read from the top and go down. He says, "It is my great honor to endorse Chris McGowan, a fantastic candidate." We're going to skip these endorsements. "I have just completed an excellent telephone conversation with President Xi. Of China. It was a long and thorough call where many important subjects were discussed, including trade, military, the April trip that I will be making to China, which I very much look forward to. Taiwan, the war between Russia and Ukraine, the current situation with Iran, the purchase of oil and gas by China from the United States, the consideration by China of the purchase of additional agricultural products, including lifting the soybean count to 20 million tons for the current season. They have committed to 25 million tons for next season. Airplane engine deliveries, the numerous other subjects, all very positive. The relationship with China and my personal relationship with President Xi is an extremely good one. And we both realize how important it is to keep it that way. I believe that there will be many positive results achieved over the next 3 years of my presidency having to do with President Xi and the People's Republic of China, President Donald J. Trump." I'm almost wondering if, as we learn about the beast from the sea with 7 heads and 10 horns, I wonder, and there's also another one in Revelation 17. I'm inclined to think they're the same, but at the same time, you have to admit there's some odd similarities with other countries. Just a random thought. All right, let's see. So it is another endorsement. Let's see. This is it. There we go. Beautiful building will be complete. Okay, there. I think that's it. President Trump. Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. 3 minutes to cover Donald Trump. Let's see if he posted anything on the White House. He likes to post stuff here. Let's see. How long is this video? New video with J.D. Vance speaking at the Critical Minerals Conference. 41 minutes. We're probably not going to cover that. 5 days ago. All right, nothing else. Well, that's good. Let's call it a wrap on Donald Trump and move over to Elon Musk. This is good. We're making good time for spending time learning about Islam. All right, let us move to Elon. All right, building an interstellar. So this is his pinned post. We didn't look at this yesterday. Building an interstellar. What is it? Interstellar Space Station. Website. XAI joins SpaceX to accelerate humanity's future. SpaceX has acquired XAI to form the most ambitious. Okay, we did read about this, so they're combined. Yeah, we probably don't really need to focus on that too much. Oh, you know what? I did find an app to filter out the posts that we don't want to read, but I forgot to install it. So we'll have to do that tomorrow. All right, an hour ago from Nick Cruz, Pantane. I love videos. Let's watch it.
So you realize it's a bottleneck, and you go to your engineers and like, what is the next, like, what do you tell them to do? I want 1 million wafers a month in 2030. What is the next, like, what do you...
That's right.
Do you, like, call ASML? Like, what is the next...
That's what I want.
What is the next step?
That's so much to ask.
Well, we make a little fab and see what happens. Make our mistakes at a small scale, and then make a big one.
Is a little fab done, or is it...
No, it's not done. I mean, people would, they're not going to keep that cat in the bag. That cat's going to come out of the back room. There'll be like drones hovering over the bloody thing, you know. You'll be able to like, see its construction progress on X, right, you know, in real time.
So you realize it's a bottleneck, and you go to your engineers. So you realize it's a bottleneck.
Tesla terafab. What is a terafab? We'll make a little fab and see what happens, make our mistakes, and then small scale. So is this some kind of like habitat? I would think that would be called like the terahab. Terafab would seem like, is this like a 3D printer for building on Mars? Musk on building a Tesla terafab. Interesting. Where's this interview from? I want to watch the whole interview. See, new season of Cheeky Pint starts tomorrow. First up, sit down with Elon Musk to discuss space GPUs and more. I've had enough of space GPUs for now. Let's see, FCC has formally accepted and is now seeking public comments on the major application from SpaceX. This application is seeking approval of launching a massive new constellation of up to 1 million satellites in low Earth orbit, which would function as orbital data centers. Sure, because those are probably the stars that fall out of heaven like a fig tree when it is shaken. Can't stop God now, that's for sure. Starlink Wi-Fi review on United Airlines. We don't really care about that right now. As of today, geez, so much business news. Is this the same thing? No, this one's 4 minutes.
It's harder to scale on the ground than it is to scale in space. Any given solar panels can do about 5 times more power in space than on the ground. So it's actually much cheaper to do in space. My prediction is that it will be by far the cheapest place to put AI will be space in 36 months or less, maybe 30 months.
36 months?
Less than 36 months. You can mark my words. In 36 months, but probably closer to 30 months, the most economically compelling place to put AI will be space. And then it will get like ridiculously better to be in space.
Yeah.
You know, once you start thinking in terms of what percentage of the sun's power are you harnessing, you realize you have to go to space. You can't scale very, very much on Earth.
But by very much, to be clear, you're talking like terawatts.
Yeah. Well, all of the United States currently uses only half a terawatt of power on average.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, if you say a terawatt, that would be twice as much electricity as the United States currently consumes. So that's quite a lot. And can you imagine building that many data centers? I mean, that many power plants? It's like those who have like lived in software land don't realize that they're about to have a hard lesson in hardware that it's actually very difficult to build power plants. And then you don't just need you need power plants, you need all of the electrical equipment, you need the electrical transformers to run the transformers. Have you ever tried to do an interconnect agreement with a utility at scale, like with a lot of power?
As a professional podcaster, I can say that I'm not, in fact.
Yeah.
Can't you solve this with your own behind-the-meter power stuff?
You can build power plants.
Yeah.
That's what we did at XAI for closest to it.
Why isn't this a generalized solution?
It's very difficult to scale other forms of power. You can scale potentially solar. Solar cells are already...
I'll add that he's getting a lot of flack for the way he built XAI with the methane engines there. There's a lot of people that are attacking him for doing that. I could see why he would want to just like, you know what, I don't want to deal with people on the ground anymore. Let's move all this to space. We get way more power out in space anyway. Plus we get cooling. You know, the funny thing is they actually did the town a favor where they built XAI as for their cooling solution. They could have used a solution that would have been detrimental to the town, but instead they chose to actually filter their sewer and actually assist the town and be a net positive. And yet people still find problems with XAI being in their town.
Very cheap. I think like solar cells in China are around like 25, 30 cents a watt or something like that. It's absurdly cheap. Now put it in space and it's 5 times cheaper. In fact, no, it's not 5 times cheaper, it's 10 times cheaper because you don't need any batteries. So the moment your cost of access to space becomes low, by far the cheapest and most scalable way to generate tokens is space. It's not even close. It'll be an order of magnitude easier to scale. 5 years from now, my prediction is we will launch and be operating every year more AI in space than the cumulative total on Earth. Yeah, I think towards the end of this year, I think probably chip production will outpace the ability to turn chips on. The chips are going to be piling up and won't be able to be turned on.
How do you design a chip for space? What changes?
Well, I guess you want to design it to be more radiation tolerant and run at a
Tesla
higher
fab
temperature.
for making their
You know,
own
roughly,
chips.
if you increase the operating temperature by 20% in degrees Kelvin, you can cut your radiator mass in half. Running at a higher temperature is helpful in space. There's various things you can do for shielding the memory, but like neural nets are going to be very resilient to bit flips.
Yeah.
So like most of what happens for radiation is like random bit flips. But like if you've got like, you know, a multi-trillion parameter model and you get a few bit flips, it doesn't matter. Like heuristic programs are going to be much more sensitive to bit flips than some giant parameter file.
I'm very curious how somebody like gets started. This is like the most.
So what he's talking about with bit flips is on silicone, the CPU that runs your computer, your phone, pretty much all technology. They are subject, and this is a known issue. They're subject to radiation causing the transistors to randomly change because they're electricity. So there's transistors in the microchips have two positions, on and off, and they're controlled by electricity. So with enough radiation, it can mess up with the on and off process. So you can imagine that if you've got a bunch of chips in space, if they're getting hit with any kind of radiation, it can cause some anomalies with the on and off switching. And he's saying that it'll be at such a scale that it just won't even matter.
Most complicated thing man has ever made. And obviously, like, if anybody's up to the task, you're up to the task. Like, what do you, so you realize it's a bottleneck and you go to your engineers and like, what is the next, like, what do you tell them to do? I want 1 million wafers a month in 2030. What is the next, like, what do you?
Oh, so he said 1 million wafers per month. So they're talking about building their own microchip fabrication, which right now we're heavily dependent on Taiwan. There is some manufacturing in the United States and more so coming back thanks to Donald Trump. This is probably also what Elon is now tackling with building wafers. It sounds like he's making Tesla fab. First I've heard about this. Dude, nobody's even going to ever be able to catch up with Elon financially. He's going to be the richest man ever, pending Jesus returning and the world just going into World War III. Right now, I believe his net worth is somewhere like $900 billion. This is ridiculous. And you imagine he starts making microchips as well? Well, we'll see.
That's right.
Do you like call ASML? Like, what is the next
That's what I want.
What is the next step?
That's so much to ask.
Well, we make a little fab and see what happens. Make our mistakes at a small scale and then make a big one.
Is a little fab done, or is it?
No, it's not done. People would. They're not going to keep that cat in the bag. That cat's going to come out of the back room. There'll be like drones hovering over the bloody thing, you know.
Wow. All right, moving on. 4 hours ago, video generation. Ugh. I'm done with the video generation stuff. Grok Imagine, ChatGPT. So anyone who's been paying attention knew this already, but data is always good to have. What is this? Since 1988, polarization in the U.S. has been overwhelmingly due to the left moving leftward, while the right has basically stayed the same. This is according to a new analysis using k-means clustering, which means actual positions instead of self-labels. Oh, another chart that I don't know how to read. Cluster, so the right moving right. Oh, yeah, so it's relatively a straight line where it looks like the left, I assume, means they're moving more left, 1990 to 2020. Okay, so this is the up and down. So they've just basically stayed the same, where these guys are going further down. Okay. If you say so. All right, Joey Marino. Holy crap, Telegram just sent this message to all users in Spain. The country is on its way to North Korean censorship. Yikes. The government, Pedro Sanchez is promoting new dangerous regulations that threaten your freedoms on the internet. Announced yesterday, these measures could turn Spain into a surveillance state under the pretext of protection. Of course, here I explain why they are a red alarm signal for freedom of expression and privacy. Number one, prohibition of social networks for children under 16 years of age with mandatory age verification. This is not just about children. It requires platforms to use strict control, such as requiring IDs or biometrics. Yeah, so this is an excuse to identify users, which is dangerous because free speech is now there's no privacy or anonymity. Now they can identify and target. Let's see, danger. Establish a precedent to track the identity of each user, eroding anonymity and opening doors to massive data collection. What begins with minors could extend to everyone, stifling the open debate. Personal and criminal liability for platform executives. If illegal, hateful, or harmful content is not quickly removed, those responsible could go to jail. This is how they're going to try and jail Elon. Danger, this will force over censorship. The platforms will erase anything minimally controversial to avoid risk, silencing political dissent, journalism, and everyday opinions. Your voice could be next if you defy the status quo. There's no way Elon's going to cave into this. Criminalization of algorithmic amplification. Amplifying harmful content through algorithms becomes a crime. Danger, governments will dictate what you see, burying opposing opinions and creating... Oh, I forgot to start the timer. Are we at 15 minutes? I think we're almost at the 15-minute mark here. We'll skip this. I think we get the point on censorship. All right, 6 hours ago, get awesome internet anywhere. That's Starlink. Senator Lee is correct. The Constitution, through Article 1, Section 4, empowers Congress to pass the SAVE Act, Save America Act. The NVRA, which SCOTUS was wrongfully interpreted to prohibit states from seeking proof of citizenship when registering voters under the NVRA, even when it believes non-citizens are registering, makes the SAVE Act necessary. It's a solution to a distinctly federal problem created by existing federal law, not an infringement on state authority. Grok, major crime scene. How does L.A. County have hundreds of thousands of fewer seniors than Florida, but over 30 times as many taxpayer-funded hospice providers? Major crime scene. Yeah, more fraud. They're discovering fraud everywhere. England's countryside is apparently too white. What is this about?
Do you think this is a good thing? Do we need to diversify the countryside?
I think absolutely. It's been white for far too long. And
it's been white for far too long. Look at the demographics of this. This is in England. So you have 2 black people, 1 white person, and the black guy who's getting interviewed is saying the countryside is too white. It's been white for far too long. Does nobody see a problem with this? Imagine this was in Nigeria. There was 1 black dude, there was 2 white people, and the white person was saying Nigeria's countryside has been black too long. How did we get to this stage? Yeah. The biggest issue is that people don't see a problem with this. I could never get away with that kind of rhetoric in another country to say.
Well, and the weird thing is that white people are doing it too. It's like white people are saying that white supremacists are the problem and white people are the problem. It's like, dude, you're white. You realize you're talking about your own death when you're like talking down about these people. It's like they're stupid. All right, we're going to move on as we get the points. Let's see. From Nate Friedman, I caught this guy paying protesters. Really?
I'm a journalist, and I'm wondering if there's someone I can speak to. Is there someone that I can speak to?
Yeah, I think they might be like on the other side of the park, actually.
No.
Yeah.
They said you would be here.
Oh no, but other side of the park's actually.
Why are you so upset? Why are you so angry?
I was angry right here.
What? You seem like really jittery, like upset.
Oh, you're just annoying. That's all.
Oh, why am I annoying? All right. Well, to go for a stand here.
Meet Naftali Aaron-Kranz. He's a paid protester through and through. Here's him posting on LinkedIn to hire paid protesters for the company he works for called Get Free. Listen to this. Get Free is hiring for part-time mobilization support contractor. That just means paid protester. We're seeking out people with 4+ years of experience in leading direct action and large-scale mobilizations, demonstrations, protests, and civil disobedience, which just means experience getting arrested. Compensation is $3,500 to $4,200 a month for an average of 20 hours a week. Get Free on their website calls themselves a grassroots organization, when Naftali and others are literally being paid to protest. Get Free wants to, quote, undo white supremacy. Naftali thinks one of the best ways to do that is to celebrate vandalism, saying Crown Heights stay winning after someone threw an egg at a stranger's Cybertruck and placed dog feces on it. Here's Naftali at an Abolish the Police rally. You can see he's not leading the protest, just blending in amongst the other recruits. He can get his photo op later because the way this works is combining all the leftist causes together to make the individual causes look bigger than they are. And of course he works with the DSA, which is why I ran into him at this DSA Tax the Rich rally. On LinkedIn, you can see Naftali frequently doing his paid protester posts saying, come work with and help us expand our effort to win reparations across the country. And Naftali is recruiting nationwide in Chicago, the Bay Area, and Baltimore. Pod organizers he's hiring for are tasked with building small, localized teams.
All right, we get it. I mean, this is actual evidence of paid protesters, which we've been hearing about nonstop from Trump and from the right wing media outlets. Different people reporting saying that these are paid protesters. We've seen reports, even stuff we've covered on here, where I remember T Supply covers, have gone through and shown, protesters that show up, all around the world, that are there instigating and supporting particular causes. So this is just additional proof that they're literally being paid pretty well. I mean, $4,200 a month for 20 hours a week of just, being, I guess being who you are. If you've got Trump derangement syndrome or whatever derangement syndrome you have, being paid to be mentally ill. All right, moving on. If anyone did everything within their power to put pressure on the Department of Justice to release the Jeffrey Epstein files, it was Elon Musk. True. Elon pushed harder than anyone for the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files. Thank you, Elon, for standing against child trafficking. Sound of freedom. All right, what is this?
Acaba de decir Elon Musk que Pedro Sánchez es un traidor a España. Y tiene toda la razón. Es un traidor a España y es un corrupto. El mayor
Let's see, Pedro Sanchez is the traitor to Spain. And Elon is absolutely right. He is a traitor to Spain and is corrupt. The greatest corrupt person who has ever ruled Spain. And now he wants to shut down both because of all their crimes and coming out because of all their abuses are coming out. All his criminal gangs are coming out. Okay, we get the point. Yeah. Yeah, clear. I don't think any of us disagree with that. See, from Katie Miller. Oh, we love Katie. The Epstein files is a Democrat hoax perpetrated on the American people. Why didn't Bill Clinton, Reid Hoffman, or Bill Gates push for Epstein's arrest or prosecutions of serious wrongdoing by their friends during Obama or Biden years? In President Trump's first term, Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and jailed. In his second, he released the files. It's curious, why didn't these Democrats want justice before? All right. By pressing this one, the GOP save the Republic and rescue the GOP. If they fail, we all fail. It must be done or democracy is dead. I'm getting the sense that democracy is dead, especially going into the Great Tribulation. I'm starting to put together a timeline. We might get into this. I had the funniest conversation with Grok today, trying to put together my notes and trying to line everything up in the scripture with so I realized that there's an alignment with the parables and the harvests, and I was trying to put them together in a timeline today, and Grok kept arguing. I kid you not. I actually haven't had anybody on the channel argue with me about no one knows the day or hour. That's typically the response you get anytime you're talking about the end time events. I haven't had that happen in a really long time on the channel, probably a year. To where, you know, you start talking about the timeline of the end time events and people, you know, they just, their knee jerk reaction is, oh, no man knows the day or hour. And it's funny, I got it from Grok today. I kept trying to get my notes in order, and it's just like, well, you're aware that, you know, that according to scripture and the most common interpretation that no man knows the day or hour. So these are just highly, and I'm like, seriously, Grok, just knock it off. It was pretty funny. I had to actually lay down my reasoning about, okay, the whole reason you watch is because you don't know. It's not an excuse not to watch and pay attention. I mean, like, there's massive amounts of data that are worth evaluating and, you know, paying attention to what's going on in the world. And finally it agreed with me so that we could actually move on and get my timeline done. But it pretty comical. AI is getting a little pushy these days. All right. 9 hours ago, the tide has finally turned. We were told these surgeries weren't happening, and they accused us of misinformation, hate speech, and incitement, and saying they shouldn't be happening. Wow. Okay. Grok, Tesla policy. I'm just going to try and do a quick scan here to make sure there's nothing. We're at time, but I want to make sure there's nothing else we need to cover. Bringing Grok. The official Jeffrey Epstein pedophile arrest counter. Odd, isn't it? Let's see. Massey. See what he has to say.
And the thing is everybody, sure, you can, it sounds like a good thing, bring them over here, but we really didn't need another 80,000 people from Afghanistan. We didn't need another 80,000 people from Iraq, and we certainly didn't need another 80,000 people from Somalia. And if they're coming, they should be ineligible for welfare. If you come as a legal immigrant, you're not supposed to get welfare for 5 years, and yet we know it's happening. The refugees can get it immediately.
Okay. What is this? American wants voter ID and proof of citizenship to control our elections.
Who would not want voter ID? Only somebody that wants to cheat. Think of it. We don't have voter ID, and the Democrats don't want it. And the reason they don't want it because they want to cheat.
That's
because
right.
There's no reason in the world.
That's exactly right. They want to cheat. Conspiracy theorists right now. Oh, this could be funny. Oh, happy conspiracy theorists. All right. I think we could probably cover the majority of it. I really want to get moving on because we have a lot of content to cover here. It's probably going to take an hour or two to hour and a half to cover what we're getting into now. So let's move into our next segment, bruising the head of the serpent.
I come in my own name. A shadow falls, a world aflame. I rise, I rule, I stake my claim. A serpent's coil, a deadly game.
All right. We have this. So this is a video from 2022. The talk is about an Islamic beast. And the reason I'm playing this video is because he does a pretty good job showing the regions involved with the beasts. Now, there are obviously some things that I don't agree with in this. And you know me, I'm going to speak up when we get to them. So let's get started and watch this. Yeah.
Me to do this tonight. He and I talked about it a little bit. He was going to be in Revelations 13 tonight. We're going to be in Revelations 13 tonight. And we've got handouts. If you didn't get a handout, raise your hand. The guys will bring you one. Did anybody not get one? We've got 2 or 3 up here. It's those praise team guys. You know, you can't. Make sure they get one. So as Pastor and I talked about this, here's what we're going to do. He and I are going to tag team Revelations 13. I'm going to go through it tonight and some other passages as well. And I'm going to give you, I guess you would say, a little more, I don't want to use the word modern, but a little more contemporary view of what some of this could mean and how some of it could work out. He's going to come back next week and give you the traditional view. Okay, so you're going to get both views, and that way you can see where you shake out. Okay, neither one's right, neither one's wrong, because that's the thing about prophecy. Prophecy develops as we go along. You know, everybody thought Hitler was...
It's so rare to hear somebody who has this perspective when it comes to prophecy. Like, until the prophecy is fulfilled, and even when it is fulfilled, there can still be uncertainty about the prophecy. You know, the thing about where we are in the end times right now is there's such an overwhelming amount of data that is irrefutable, that, you know, places us, you know, confidently in a certain point in time. But it's a very valid point. I love the way he does his presentation, to where it's like he's not saying that this is the way things are. It's just this is one way it could pan out, because we're constantly balancing between our opinion and observations and our study.
The Antichrist and the world's about to end, right? And so now things have changed and some different things are going on in the world. And we see things a little differently as it begins to open up. And as we get closer to the final days, more and more of it will open up.
Yep.
So look at Revelation chapter 13. We're going to read this whole chapter. It won't take just a moment, I hope. Revelation 13. Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea. Say, out of the sea. Okay, remember that. Having 7 heads, 10 horns. How many horns? 10. Okay. And on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast. So they worshiped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast.
I'm still not 100% convinced that that's not America and the United States. I'm just not sure how it fits in to the Islamic uprising. But again, I'm still learning a lot of this Islamic history. There may be something that just fits significantly better, but I can't get over, you know, just what went down in the United States, to where Biden drove us to the point of almost destruction, to the death, almost to the death of the United States. And then Trump brought it back miraculously. So there could be a hybrid explanation here, but I'm not convinced either way.
He's saying, who is like the beast, who is able to make war with him? And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven. It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. All who dwell on the earth, how many? All who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the...
This is going to be a key factor, whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life. This is kind of what I was going through with Grok. And I don't have... I'll have to go find that page where I was working on it. But yeah, so that's a very important detail about those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. I'll just give you the quick TLDR. I'm of the opinion right now that those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life are the ones who are harvested in seal number 6. So during seal number 6, that lines up with the 10 virgins, to where 10 are ready and 10 aren't. The 10 who aren't ready are told to go buy more oil. And then when they come back, Jesus says, I never knew you, which is indicative of the fact that they're not written in the Lamb's book of life. There are other parables that are like that. There's also Matthew 7, I believe it is, where many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not, prophesy in your name, cast out demons in your name, do many wonderful works in your name? And I will say to them, get behind me, I never knew you. So there's those who are written in the Lamb's book of life, I think, are the ones who are probably harvested before the wrath. And those who are not written in the Lamb's book of life seem like they're the ones who need to go through, because the promise of being kept from the wrath doesn't apply to those who don't accept Yeshua. So I'm of the opinion that they actually go through the wrath, and they're going to, by tribulation and God's wrath, be forced to make a decision to where it might be associated with the Laodicean church, who think they're rich, they're neither hot or cold, but because they're lukewarm, he spews them out. I almost wonder if going through God's wrath doesn't cause them to make a decision to either choose life or death. Because there seems to be two harvests. There's the first, the harvest, and then there's the winepress of God's wrath, which doesn't explicitly say that that it's any kind of a like a rapture or gathering together, but it is another type of harvest, which means that there is some fruit that comes out of it.
The foundation of the world. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with a sword must be killed with a sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Verse 11, then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth. Say the earth. So we got two different beasts here. He had two horns like a lamb, and he spoke like a dragon. And he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and he causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. He performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he has granted.
That's another one that I'm trying to nail down. Is there anything in Islam or any in those countries over there where they're able to call down fire from heaven? Because there's a small group of people who could fit this description. Elon Musk, oddly enough, is one of them, because he's able to call the rockets that he sends up come back and land, but those are those are fire propelled rockets. So I don't know if that constitutes calling down fire from heaven. I forgot to follow up on this, but I believe just last week or very recently, the United States announced that they do have directed energy weapons. Does that constitute calling fire down from heaven, or is there something else calling down fire from heaven? So that one's still to be determined.
He was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, and the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name.
He doesn't really get into the mark in this video. We started covering it yesterday. I've got another couple of videos to go through for the mark of the beasts, for possibilities. I'm of the opinion right now that the mark of the beast isn't fully enforced during the Great Tribulation. So the way it seems like things are shaping up is that starting February 17th, 2026 it's looking like it's going to be the start of the Great Tribulation. Suffice it to say, it seems like it's going to be World War III, and it's going to be worse than it's ever been on the planet before. It looks like, based on the pattern set by the seals, that it will only last 6 months. At the end of that 6 months, it will be stopped. It'll come to an end because of the rotation of the earth. The magnetic pole shifts is going to cause so much chaos and confusion that it's going to put a stop to that. That's, I believe, God shortening the Great Tribulation so that, because had he not done that, no flesh would survive. Sometime during seal number 6, very likely at the very beginning, probably around the Festival of Trumpets, is when we'll see Yeshua come back to gather together those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. During this time, during the Great Tribulation, there's an Islamic, I believe there's going to be an Islamic uprising, and the reason I don't think the mark of the beast will be enforced at that time is because I keep seeing references to Christians who can pay a tax, so that they're not killed. When the mark of the beast is fully enforced, they no longer have that option. I believe he mentions that towards the end of this video. But just kind of putting together when things are going to happen and what we can expect. I think that's probably the way that it's going to play out, based on everything I've seen and learned so far.
Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. This is the chapter you've all been waiting on, right? You want to know who the Antichrist is. You want to know.
All right. You know how it drives me insane that he uses the word Antichrist here. As well as his presentation is, I don't think he uses the Antichrist properly. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Know who the false prophet is. You want to know what 666 means, and you want to know when it's all going to take place. Guess what? I can't tell you. And neither can anybody else. We can give you theories on these things, and there are plenty of them. But the bottom line is none of us really know how this is all going to work out. We have our best guess from other scriptures and studying and looking and so forth. But in the end, it's a wait and see thing, right?
So this was in 2022. This was 3 years ago. I wonder if his opinion has changed at all.
The problem with prophecy that I find in a lot of places, in the church especially, if you begin to focus strictly on prophecy, and a lot of people, it's easy to do that because it's intriguing, it's exciting, it's all these things.
Especially for engineers.
But here's the problem with doing that. If you're spending all of your time studying prophecy and trying to find out who the beast is and what 666 is and what the mark's going to look like and all those things, if you're spending all of your time on that, what you're doing is you're spending all of your time out there. And you will miss what's happening right here today.
That is a fair point.
It's very easy to fall into that trap.
Yeah.
God gave us this information, and we need to see it. We need to understand it. We need to study it. We need to have a base.
I think that explains why there's so many false prophets, because there's so many people that get so, and I include myself in this bunch, so don't think I'm pointing fingers. I'm pointing a lot of fingers at myself. It's really easy to get caught up in this, especially the fear of the Great Tribulation. Like in 2019, when I realized that we were in the end times, I went crazy. We started buying solar power, batteries, every aspect of our life started gearing towards surviving 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation. And it went nothing like everybody thought it was going to go like. That was a big eye-opening moment for me, because it put our family through tribulation. My wife got to go so sick and tired of me of saying, oh, the rapture's going to happen this month. The rapture's going to happen this month. I just know it. That she kicked me out of the house and said, you need a dose of reality. Best thing she could have ever done for me, because it helped me realize exactly what it is that he's saying, that it's easy to hyper focus on these things and completely ignore your life. And especially when you're of the mind that like, I don't need to do X, Y, and Z because, of the Great Tribulation, or because the coming, disaster, or the coming wars and stuff like that. Even if the Great Tribulation starts February 17th, you should still be living your life, right? You should still be, loving your neighbors. You should be, taking care of your family, doing the things that you need to do. You shouldn't be don't be afraid in the corner that, Islamist jihadists are going to be going through your neighborhood. Just be more aware during these times. Like February 17th, we're going to be locking our gates and, making sure all the guns are cleaned up and the ammo's ready to go, if anything does pop off and comes to our neighborhood. But we're going to just continue life as normal. We may even do Passover. We may even do like a nice family Passover that evening, just because of, if death is going through the world, if destruction is going to go through the world, we want to focus on the things that are written in the scripture about those times. We're in the birth pains. And here's the thing, birth pains, when, and the ladies who have had children know this all too well, is that it's a terrible time. Labor pains are painful. Birth is hard. There's a lot of pain and a lot of waiting involved, and that may very well be the case with the Great Tribulation. If you think of it more like birth pains, to where it's just like, this is necessary in order for the new birth. It'll last such a short period of time that once we're through it, and once it's said and done, and the new birth has happened, that new life just makes everything go away. You won't even remember it. So we know these things have to come to pass. We know these things have to happen, but you don't need to be afraid of them. You don't have to upend your life and act like a crazy person. You can live your life, trust God, and continue with all boldness. Continue to go to church, continue to go to your events, continue to do your birthdays and weddings and stuff like that. Just know that what Jesus said, for if the good man of the house had known in what hour the thief would come, he would have watched. It's still just a matter of watching. So we have this date, February 17th. That's a potential time that the thief may try to enter our house. So if you know that, watch. You don't have to completely change your life. So it's a very valid point, and I appreciate him bringing this up.
Basic understanding of it. He gave us this so that we would know whatever happens to us today is okay, because we know what's going to happen out there.
Amen.
Now, we might not know what it's going to look like.
We're getting a good picture these days.
We know what's going to end up happening, right? So what I'm going to do tonight is share with you a view of the Antichrist, the false prophet, and so forth. It's really been on the scene for probably 20 or 30 years now. It's really become more popular, and more people are signing on to it in the last 15, 20 years, I guess. And it's this idea that the Antichrist and the things that are happening in Revelation have a direct tie with the religion we call Islam.
So, and right there is the reason why I think we should, and I wish we could start a movement for this, to clarify the difference between Antichrist and the little horn, because Antichrist is more than likely the religion of Islam, where the leader is the little horn, but everybody likes to combine those together, and that they miss the fact that it's the belief that is the mark, the belief that is, that you're replacing God with something else. That is very likely what the spirit of Antichrist truly is, not the actual individual. People, and this is what misleads people, and I actually had a discussion with somebody today who's insistent that we're not in the end times because the Antichrist hasn't gone into the temple and declared himself God. What if that never happens, but somebody is trying to force you to believe that their God is God? I mean, that is somebody trying to put a man in your temple, who you are, and replace God with their God. So this really why the importance for the distinction is understanding the difference between the people and the beliefs.
I'm going to show you some passages tonight, and I'm going to make a case as best I can that the Antichrist, the false, and so forth will come out of Islam. And I'll show you why as we go along. Now, am I right, wrong? I don't know. This is the way I lean, okay? But it doesn't mean I'm right. It could still be the traditional way of the Rome and all of those
churches. I want to go to this
church.
To
me, personally, this makes more sense. But that's human thinking, not God's thinking, right? And I understand that. So anyway, I'm going to show you this tonight. And what I'm going to share with you tonight is not just information and
Tennessee.
things that I have garnered from books and Google and those kinds of things. Over the past 15 to 20 years, I've traveled internationally, as many of you know. I have worked rather heavily in some Islamic areas.
And this is one of the
One
reasons.
of those areas, I'm not going to say that.
This is one of the reasons why we're listening to him tonight. Is I like to hear it from people who have the experience, because you tend to get wiser answers and opinions than people who have never been there, have no idea what's going on, that are just giving their opinion. So you get slightly better information from people who have the wisdom.
The name of the country here, some of you probably know it because you know me. But in one of those areas, I have had the opportunity on 2 occasions to sit down with the Grand Imam. Now that would be like the Pope of all the Muslims in that country, and it's a 98% Muslim country. I've had the opportunity to sit down with this Imam on 2 different occasions, have tea with him, talk about Jesus, and I've talked about some of this. So some of what I'm kind of sharing comes out of personal experience and personal discussions with high-ranking Islamic officials, okay? So I'm not just quoting a book to you or anything like that. When we talk about the Antichrist, what we're really talking about is end-time government.
Thank you for clarifying that.
We all know that in the end, we're going to come up with this one world government.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
The Bible teaches that very clearly.
Yep.
The whole world is going to be controlled by one man, who is controlled by Satan himself. In order to understand this government, there's several passages that you have to look at. We're going to talk about several of them tonight. You have to talk about Daniel 2. You have to talk about Daniel 7. You have to talk about Revelation 13, which we just read. And we'll jump over briefly and look at Revelation 17, because all of these come into play when it comes down to determining who this end-time figure is going to be. So, with that said, we're going to back up to Daniel for just a few minutes. I'm not going to read these passages just for sake of time tonight. You can go back and read them. You'll probably be familiar with all of them, at least somewhat. You can go back later and read Daniel 2, Daniel 7 for yourself. But I want to start off talking about Daniel chapter 2. In Daniel chapter 2, Nebuchadnezzar has this vision. And this is the vision. Now, this I always love reading this story because you remember the story. The king has a dream, right? And so he calls in his magicians, his soothsayers, all of his mystical people. He says, hey, I had a dream. I want you to interpret it for me. They say, okay, what's the dream? He said, no. I don't trust you. You tell me the dream and you tell me what it means. Now, can you imagine the panic in these guys' mind? And they said, wait a minute, King, nobody's ever asked us to do that. He says, doesn't matter. That's what you're going to do. And if you don't do it, I'm going to kill you and burn your house down. You're talking about pressure on the job. That's pressure on the job, right? And so they can't do it. And so he sends out the order to kill all the wise men and to burn their houses. Well, Daniel, who is one of the Israelites brought over from Jerusalem, here's what's happening. He's one of the wise men. He's been brought into that group. He says, whoa, wait a minute. He says, let me see the king. So he goes in and tells the king, says, King, look, give me some time. So the king says, okay, I'll give you some time. So Daniel comes back to him. Daniel says, okay, king, says, I can't do this, but there's a God in heaven that reveals secrets. And he's revealed to me what you saw. And this is it. He says, you saw this statue. And this statue has a head of gold. It has a chest, shoulders of silver, the belly and down in here bronze, and then its legs are iron. And then its feet and toes are mixed iron and clay. He said, then you saw a stone that was cut out without hands, and it came and it struck the statue's feet, and it obliterated the statue. And then this stone became a great mountain and ruled the entire world, basically.
I wonder so we're going to take a little pivot here, a little side quests. if this isn't the black stone that is the corner of Mecca, and we're going to switch over here to this video and watch somebody talk about this. What is the Kaaba? Because the corner of this thing there is a black stone which is said to have come from heaven.
This is the Kaaba. Located in the city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia, the Kaaba is the holiest site in Islam. Every day,
I'm wondering if that's not the mountain that he's referring to.
Hundreds of millions of Muslims face toward it in prayer. Hotel rooms have arrows on their ceiling pointing toward it. Kings, emperors, and nation-states competed for control over it. And the need to know its relative location, no matter where you were in the world, sparked new developments in astronomy and trigonometry. So what is the Kaaba, and what makes it so important in Islam? The word Kaaba means cube in Arabic, though the building itself isn't exactly a cube. At about 15 meters tall.
See right there, you can see the stone right here on the corner. That's the black stone.
Tall and 12 meters wide, it's taller than it is wide, and its sides aren't exactly the same width, but it's pretty close. The building is made out of irregularly shaped granite stones, held together with mortar, with a flat wooden roof covered in metal. As you can imagine, it doesn't rain much in Mecca, but when it does, a flat roof on any building is prone to flooding. So a golden rain spout was added on the northwest side in the 1600s. Muslims worldwide pray in the direction of the Kaaba when they perform the daily prayer. The direction of prayer is called the Qibla, literally meaning direction, and it's marked in mosques around the world by a niche in the wall called a mihrab. At least once during their lifetime, if they are physically and financially able, Muslims are also expected to make a pilgrimage to Mecca to complete the Hajj. Outside of the Hajj, millions of pilgrims come to Mecca each year to perform Umrah, an optional but still meritorious pilgrimage. The Kaaba is housed in a larger mosque complex called the Masjid al-Haram. This building has been rebuilt, redesigned, and expanded over the centuries, with the most recent expansion project conducted between 2008 and 2023. This expansion allows the mosque to accommodate up to 3 million visitors at once, though it was not without controversy, since some elements of the project, including a controversial clock tower, were built over historically significant sites, including graves of significant early Muslim figures. The part of the Masjid al-Haram immediately surrounding the Kaaba is called the Mataf, literally the place of Tawaf. Tawaf is a key part of the Hajj pilgrimage, ritually walking around the Kaaba counterclockwise 7 times, though religious studies scholars like to use the fancy term circumambulation, which just means walking around. Pilgrims must perform Tawaf when they first enter the Masjid al-Haram to signal their intention to begin the Hajj. They then perform it at least twice more during their pilgrimage, once before traveling to the area of Mina for the stoning of the devil, when pilgrims throw stones against a wall, and once as a farewell to end their Hajj. One of the key features of the Kaaba is the black stone, embedded in a silver case attached directly to the eastern corner of the Kaaba. Some scholars suspect that this black stone is a meteorite and trace it to a series of pre-Islamic Arabian shrines. Muslim tradition, however, connects it to Adam and Eve. In these accounts, the stone fell from heaven to help them find one another as they were separated while being cast out of the Garden of Eden. When they were reunited, they built the first altar to God on the site of the fallen stone. The stone has been broken into multiple pieces over its history. First, it was damaged during a siege in 683 CE, and again during a theft by a Muslim sect called the Karmatians, who held the stone for over 100 years. When it was regained, it was cemented back together and put back where it is now. The black stone is an important focal point for visitors and pilgrims who hope to get close enough to touch it or kiss it. There are even stories of pilgrims in the distant past seeking to smack their foreheads hard enough against the black stone to leave a permanent mark as evidence of their piety, though some Muslim theologians are skeptical of this level of focus on the black stone itself. Most theologians are quick to clarify that this is not understood to be worship of the Kaaba or the black stone, but instead, worship of God. There are various explanations for the symbolism of Tawaf. Some say it symbolizes how all creation orbits God. Others say it mirrors the orbit of the Earth around the sun or the galaxy around its center. The number 7 itself is connected to the concept.
All right, I just wanted to cover that part because I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, just where my mind goes from what I've been learning is, you know, when you hear about a meteorite coming and smashing the stone, and then the religion that we're learning about has, you know, a lore or a myth about a meteorite coming out of heaven in a big black box. I don't know if those things are related, but I do think that it's interesting.
You go home and read it yourself, but that's basically the story. Now, prophecy experts know that this was, as Daniel said, a prophecy telling of future kingdoms that would come on the earth. All right? Daniel tells us, he tells the king, King, you're a king of kings, you're the top, you're the head of gold. He said, but after you, there's going to come another one. It'll be inferior to you. It'll be silver. Silver is inferior to gold. Daniel didn't know who this was going to be because it hadn't happened, right? But he says it's going to happen. And then there'll be another one that's going to be bronze, and then there'll be one that's going to be iron. Now, we know that the silver, the shoulders, the arms, the silver, is Medo-Persia. Medo-Persia, modern-day Iran. In fact, modern-day Iran was called Persia until 1934, and it changed its name to Iran. So, you might remember the story. Belshazzar's handwriting on the wall. You remember that later in Daniel? That night, Medo-Persia came in and they conquered Babylon. They took it over. They were the second kingdom. Then, after that, we have Alexander the Great and the Greeks. They come in and they conquer and they take over. They were not as good as these guys, but they're bronze. And then the traditional interpretation says Rome was the next world empire. And so they say that the legs were Rome. And they say there's two legs, and it's because there was an Eastern Empire and a Western Empire of Rome. So you had the two legs. And they say the feet and the toes have yet to come. They will be a revived form of that somewhere down the future. Now that's kind of the traditional view of this, right? So that's Daniel 2. Now we go to Daniel 7. In Daniel 7, Daniel has this vision himself, this dreams, these night visions as he calls them. And he says he's standing on the seashore. Where was the beast in 13? Revelation 13?
Comes up out of the sea.
Coming out of the sea, right? So Daniel's standing on the seashore. He sees 4 beasts. The first one, he says, was like a lion that had wings. The second one is a bear with 3 ribs in his mouth, and he's hunched up on one side. The third one is a leopard with 4 heads. That's kind of strange, huh? The fifth one he describes as dreadful and terrible. Now, he gets real upset about this. He prays, and the angel gives him the interpretation.
Before he goes into the interpretation, I want to make sure that it's clear that the description of these beasts are not describing the beast from the sea in Revelation. These are basically the foundation for the beast from the sea. The beast from the sea is a hybrid of these kingdoms. And it's important to understand each one of these kingdoms because they each had their strengths and weaknesses, and those are combined into the beasts with 7 heads and 10 horns, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but that's how I understand that, because there's no bear with ribs in the beast from the sea. There's a head of a lion, feet of the, you guys know.
And he says, basically, the angel didn't say it this way, but he says, basically, you saw what King Nebuchadnezzar saw. You saw future kingdoms. He said, here, that lion is Babylon. The lion was the symbol of Babylon. And in fact, they found some statues and so forth from that time period that actually had lions with wings. So the lion was the symbol of Babylon. The bear represents Medo-Persia. 2 things about the bear we're told. It has 3 ribs in its mouth. The reason the 3 ribs are there, they represent the 3 kingdoms that made up the Medo-Persian Empire. They took over Babylon, and then there was the Medes and the Persians. He's hunched on one side because the Medes were always a little stronger than the Persians. Okay, so the Mede side of this thing's stronger. And then we move to the third beast, which is the leopard with 4 heads. That's Greece. No problem. Why 4 heads? The leopard was the symbol of Greece at that time for Alexander the Great. 4 heads because when Alexander the Great died prematurely in one of his conquests, his whole kingdom was split up between his 4 top generals. All right? So that's the four heads, the four top generals that take it over after he dies.
So that is one of the references where a head can represent like a kingdom or a nation.
Now, there's something real interesting about both the statue and this one in Daniel 2 and 7, and it's this. When we get to the fourth beast that he says is dreadful and terrible, and you'll see all kinds of depictions of this because nobody really knows what he saw, but it was bad, okay? When you go back to the legs of iron on the statue, those two, in both instances we are told that this fourth kingdom crushes all the rest. And the word for crushes is the Hebrew word dekak. Dekak. And it's a very specific word. It's not just a word that says you beat them. It literally means to crush in a powder and obliterate. Totally wiping out. Okay? Now, again, traditionally, we would say this was Rome because they were the next empire on the scene. Right? But there's some problems that come up with this. Let me show you. Show me that first map, Noah. This is Babylon. This is the head of gold. Okay? This is the city of Babylon. This was the Babylonian kingdom at its greatest point. Okay? You see it? Get a feel for where it is. This would be modern day Iraq, Iran. Actual Babylon is just southwest of Baghdad today. It's just ruins now. So, this is Babylon. So the second kingdom then that comes in is the kingdom of the Medes and Persians. But before we go there, hang on a second. Before we go there, let me make one point. This prophecy was given to whom? The first one in Daniel 2. It was given to the king of Babylon. This is not a prophecy about Israel. It's a prophecy about Babylon and the world. So here's Babylon. Now let's look at the second one. Now, the Medo-Persians come in, and they came from here. They come in and they take it, and they expand. They expand east. They expand west, take all of Turkey, and pretty much all of Egypt, and down through Ethiopia and Somalia, Sudan, in that area on the coast. So they've expanded. They took Babylon, what was the original Babylon, and they expanded it, okay? All right, let's look at the Greeks. This is the Greek kingdom. Now, they came from way over here. They had already taken southern Europe. Now they come in, they move in through Turkey. They take a lot of this down here in Egypt. They come through here, they take Babylon, they take Medo-Persia, all the way over into parts of India. So again, they've taken Babylon and they've expanded. That's our first three. Look at Rome. Number 4. This is what most people say is Rome. Now we got a problem. This is the Roman Empire in its greatest day. Now, I must admit and tell you this. During the Emperor Trajan, he expanded here, just short of Babylon. Hadrian, the emperor, took over, went into Baghdad, Babylon, stayed less than 30 days, and got run out, and never went back past that line again. So they never conquered Babylon. They never conquered modern-day Iraq. They never conquered any of this. Rome didn't. This was Rome's empire. This is why I have a problem with the traditional interpretation of saying that Rome is the fourth empire. Yes, it was somewhat the fourth world empire, but it did not affect Babylon. And when you read the book of Revelations, you know how many times Babylon comes up.
Yeah.
Okay?
Fair point.
But there was a kingdom a little later in history. Let me see the next slide. Boom. That covers everything, doesn't it? Plus more.
Yep.
That is the Arab, Islamic, Ottoman Turk Empire. That's what Muhammad started. Started in Mecca, way over here, and expanded throughout the years. Finally, Turkey took over the caliphate, and now they've expanded and conquered Babylon and everything it had, plus. Okay? Now, to me, this makes more sense. Just the way I think. You can make your own decision. This is the way.
Okay, so I just want to add a little note here because I believe this is the tie-in. So this is the thing I've been trying to understand. Fury, I know you sent me an email on this, but I didn't get a chance to read it. But Grok did give me an answer on this. Tell me if this is close to what you sent me or if it's off. But in regards to Revelation, when it talks about the beast that was, is not, and will be, he's going to cover, I believe that he's going to cover this, but from my research, it refers to past Islamic empires like the Umayyad Caliphate from 661 to 750 AD, or the Ottoman Empire 1299 to 1922, which yielded global influence and persecuted Christians and Jews. That was the was. Is not points to the abolition of the caliphate in 1924 by Turkey's Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, seen as a fatal wound. So that could be the fatal head wound, echoing Revelation 13:3, where the beast has a healed mortal wound, and then the will be or about to rise predicts a revival through modern movements like ISIS, a potential caliphate, or a unified Islamic bloc under a figure like the Mahdi, the Islamic Messiah. The revived system would persecute believers, like Revelation 24 mentions beheading, which some link to Islamic extremist practices, and enforce the mark or allegiance system. All right, I just wanted to read that before he continues.
The way I see it, that this fits that final kingdom. You say, okay, now wait a minute. Let's go back to the part about crushing. In the statue, it said the legs were iron and it crushed as like iron crushes things. And we saw about how the Hebrew word says it crushes it to powder and destroys it. The Roman military was bad. They were tough. And if you just look at the Roman military, you could say, yes, they crushed. But they really didn't. Rome really was not that bad of an empire. If you would just pay your taxes to them, they'd leave you alone. You'd still be Roman, they'd leave you alone. You had to say Caesar was a god, but beyond that, you could still worship your own gods.
Yep.
You could live your own lifestyle. You could go about life. We see that in the New Testament, in the Gospels. Rome had Jerusalem, they had Judea, they had Israel. They still worshiped God. Yeah, they were supposed to pay a tax. They didn't like it. But all in all, it wasn't that bad. They were not crushed. The Islamic Caliphate, however, crushes. When they go in and take over an area, they wipe out totally anything that's not Islamic. You remember a few years back when ISIS was going strong in Syria and Iraq? How many of you saw the pictures where they were destroying crosses and tearing down ancient ruins? And they were literally crushing all those things, weren't they? That's the way they act. Because the way they see it, anything that is not of Allah has to go. So they crush, literally. And you as a person, you have basically two choices. Number one, you can convert to Islam, or you can pay the aliyah, which is a tax. You can pay a tax to be a Christian, but that's not a very good life.
And I believe that will be available through the Great Tribulation, that as the Islam empire rises again, that they'll have that as an option, and that will cease to exist after the opening of seal number 6. You know, what's interesting is we've used a similar strategy in video games to where you force people, you crush them with overwhelming force, and then you force them to convert or pay a tax. It is an extremely effective strategy, so much so that we were kicked off of game servers because nobody could defeat us. So what he's describing is an ultimate strategy for worldwide domination.
Life, trust me. They wipe out and crush. They want nothing left of what was there previously. Still that way today. Still that way. So, this fits the descriptions that we have in Daniel much better than Rome does, in my opinion. Okay? Now, let me give you another scripture we can look. We're going to jump over to Revelation 17 for just a moment. And in Revelation 17, let's see, let me just start reading verse 7 here. I didn't give the guys this one. If you don't get it on the screen, it's okay. But the angel said to me, why did you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The beast that you saw was and is not and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition, and those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they see the beast that was and is not and yet is. Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. There are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short time. The beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th. And
I wonder if there's not a correlation with short time. When he comes, he must continue a short time. I wonder if that's not linked to the Great Tribulation, to where had God not cut it short, no flesh would survive.
Is of the 7 and is going to perdition. Now, I'm going to stop right there. I call this the angel's riddle. It's a riddle. That's what it is. We got 5 that were, 1 that is, 2 that are yet to come, and then there's going to be an 8th that was one of the others. Okay? 7 heads, 7 mountains. Mountains represent kingdoms. You can go back to Daniel chapter 2. So we're talking about 7 kingdoms. There's 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other is not yet come.
And I will also note that there are 2 links to 7 mountains. So in Italy, there are 7 mountains. And then also in Saudi Arabia, and let's see if I can find it. Yeah, so Fury sent me this. In the 7 grand mountains of Makkah, Makkah, if only mountains could talk. For centuries, Makkah, a holy city in the middle of large gray boulder mountains, has witnessed thousands of historical events over several millennia and undergone many stages of development, sheltering millions throughout the years. Surrounded by 7 distinct mountains, the once bare land, located in a valley where no plants can grow, holds the holiest site in Islam, the holy Kaaba. So what the video we saw with the Kaaba, that's surrounded by 7 mountains. So there's 2 candidates that match the 7 mountains. So he reduces it to just 7 nations, but there is also a connection to Islam with the 7 mountains. Actually, we can read this down. The Holy Kaaba in the Grand Mosque of Makkah. It has drawn people from all walks of life to settle and develop a city of mixed cultures, races, backgrounds, sects, and traditions. Inhabitants of Makkah grew into the habit of climbing the mountain from Al-Mishfalah neighborhood and descending from the Al-Mala area of the Grand Mosque through the valley known as Ibrahim al-Khalil. Dr. Mansour al-Dajani, a history reader, told Arab News about Makkah's most famous mountains. Abu Qubay's mountain is considered one of the pillars of Makkah and lies east of the Grand Mosque. It is said that this was the first mountain elevated on earth and overlooks the Kaaba. In the days before Islam, the mountain was called Al-Amim, the trustworthy, and was where the Kaaba's black stone was stored in the year of the Genesis flood. The second of the Kondmama mountains located behind Kubay's mountain. The third, the Kwai Kwion mountain, or Jabal Hindi, lies west of the Grand Mosque. It was called Kwai Kwion due to the clanking of swords during the battle between the tribes of Juram and Keturah, according to the history of the books of the Makkah. One of the more famous mountains located northeast of the city is Jabal al-Nur, the mountain of light, where the cave of Hira lies, and where the prophet Muhammad received the first of many revelations. Another important mountain noted in the history books and Holy Quran is Thor, located 3 kilometers from the Holy Kaaba. It is where the prophet and his companion Abu Bakr sought refuge when fleeing from Medina from the Quraysh tribe. Located to the west of the mosque, Jabal Omar extends from Al-Shabika to Al-Mishfala neighborhoods and is where many worshippers are housed in hotels and apartment houses nowadays due to the proximity to the mosque. The last of the 7 mountains is Mount Thabir. Located opposite of Jabal al-Nur to the east, it is believed to be where the scapegoat was sent to Ishmael, son of Abraham. The mountain is divided into many regions, such as Thabor Gina, Thabor al-Nakil, the Thabir of palms, and Thabor al-Nusu, and Thabor al-Haraj. Hopefully I didn't butcher those names too badly, but just wanted to give you a concrete example of there are physical mountains that could fit the scenarios here in end-time events. I'm leaning towards Islam. Based on the stuff that we've been learning and the imagery. February 17th is going to be very revealing.
As for the beast that was and is not, it's an 8, but it belongs to the 7. So one of these is going to exist and then come back. Okay? All right, let's go to the next slide. So let's break this riddle down. 5 have fallen, 1 is, and actually 2 that have not yet come, which are really extensions of the same. So we know one thing to start off as we want to solve this riddle. He says 1 is. Now, who did he write this to? He was telling who? John, right? John's on the Isle of Patmos. Why is John there? Rome put him there. Rome is the empire at the time of John. So we know this one right off the top. That's our starting point. If we take this one and we back up, 5 have already come. We know that.
See, I'm not the only one who uses anchor points in order to the corner pieces of the puzzle. You got to have a starting point.
And that the 5 previous world empires, if we don't go all the way back to the Sumerians, which really weren't world empires. The first one was Egypt. Second was Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece. All right? Those had already passed at the time John's getting his message. So now we're at Rome. If we've got Rome here, we can't have Rome here. Now, some people will try to twist the more modern, the tradition.
See, he makes a really good argument for Islam rising as the final empire that rather than Rome. At the end, he does recognize Chrislam, but I think he makes a really good argument for Islam being that final beast from the land.
View of this, they'll twist this around a little differently. I'm not saying they're right or wrong. That's up to you to decide. But if this is Rome, we know Rome is at the time of John, then what is yet to come? There's only been one world empire over in that part of the world or anywhere, and that's the Islamic Ottoman Caliphate. It was there. It lasted until 1924, just after World War I. Ataturk, who was the leader of Turkey, abolished the caliphate. So it went away. But we were told in the riddle that the 8th is one of the 7. So it could be Rome still. It could be. And that's what the traditionalists will say, that some form of the Roman Empire is coming back. I don't see that happening. But I do see this happening. So number 8, I believe, is going to be a new Islamic caliphate.
Yeah.
It makes much more sense. That's why ISIS declared the caliphate. Remember that? When they declared the caliphate was reformed? Now, it didn't work out too good for them. But that's why they wanted to declare that, because of this. And another reason they wanted to declare it is they have their end time beliefs, which we're going to talk about in a moment. One of their end time beliefs is that their Savior that's coming back cannot come back until the caliphate is reestablished. They wanted to reestablish the caliphate so their Savior could come back, and then the whole world will worship Allah. All right? This is the way I see the riddle playing out. All right. Now, they have their own, Islam has its own eschatology. And by that I mean, just like we have revelations in Daniel and these prophetic things about end times, so does Islam. If you truly study Islam, and I have, because I've ministered with so many of them, to so many of them. I don't like ministering to anybody if I don't know what they believe. It's hard to deal with somebody if you don't know what they believe. So I've spent a lot of time on it. Islam is the perfect counterfeit of Christianity. It's actually an antithesis of Christianity. If you want to reach a Muslim, what you have to do is tell him God loves him. Because Muslims, the Islamic faith is built on the fact that Allah is always angry and you have to please him constantly. So their God is an angry God. Our God is a God of love. And that's the key point for reaching them. Now, it's not as simple as just telling them that, but that's what you have to get to. Sorry. So they have their own Islamic eschatology. We're going to walk through some stuff here right quick tonight. Not to run through it.
So this is where it gets a little on the confusing side, and where I think he's working with a lack of information and a lack of clarity. But it's worth hearing anyway.
In Islam, there are 2 basic texts or types of text.
This may not be the section. He gets into a section where he talks about the Mahdi that it gets a little confusing.
That make up their beliefs and equivalent to what we would call our Bible, okay? The first one everybody knows about, it's the Quran. The Quran's the foundational holy book. It's conveyed entirely by Muhammad. He's the only writer. It's not a collection of writers like ours. Supposedly all of the Quran was given to Muhammad when he was up in the cave by the angel Gabriel. Now, it wasn't Gabriel, I can tell you that. But anyway, that's the way this angel portrayed himself to Muhammad. The word Quran simply means recitation. Quran's made up of 114 chapters, which they call surahs. The other literature that is very important to them is called the Sunnah. And the Sunnah is made up of a collection of writings. These collection of writings basically cover anything that Muhammad did, anything that he said, or anything that he condoned that was outside of the Quran. Anything that wasn't mentioned there, they go back to this. The writings of the Sunnah to them are just as authoritative, just as powerful as the Quran. They're held equally with the Quran. In fact, they often look to the Sunnah. If they read a passage in the Quran, they don't understand it, they look for things in the Sunnah that will explain it. It's kind of like commentaries in a way, a lot of it is, okay? Within the Sunnah, there's 2 different types of literature. There's the Hadith, which records the sayings of Muhammad. And they literally will start off, the great prophet Muhammad said this, 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 this. Okay, so it's just a collection of quotations. The Sirat is the biography of Muhammad. So it all has to do with Muhammad, okay? So that's the 2 kinds of literature. And I'm going to show you some things out of these different literatures here tonight. And when we talk about their eschatology, their end times beliefs, Their end time teachings are split into two groups. Interesting, just like ours. If you go back to Matthew chapter 24, Jesus started off talking about certain things that were going to happen. He comes up to a point, and what does he say? These are the birth pangs, right? The birth pangs. Their minor signs, as they call them, are equivalent to the birth pangs. Not the same thing, but that's the way I would look at them if you're looking at a way to classify them.
I wonder if they're
Their
not
major signs begin with the return of a character.
It'd be worth looking into their minor signs and learning about those, because I wonder if they're not going through the same thing we're going through right now with this expectation of the next stage.
Character called the Mahdi. Now let me stop right here for a moment and touch one thing. Within Islam right now, there are two basic sects of Islam, and you've heard them, the Sunnis and the Shiites, right? The Shiites are mainly Iran. The Sunnis are the larger group, make up close to 90% of Islam. There are 2 or 3 others that you've probably never heard about, but they're so small that you probably wouldn't. So within these two groups, there are slightly different beliefs on these end time things. Now, I told you earlier that the reason a lot of you traditional people will make the legs of iron Rome's because there's East, but there's 2 groups of Islam as well. Sunnis and Shias. They hate each other. They'll bomb each other. They'll kill each other unless they can come together and bomb you. And then they'll come together and bomb you. Okay? And then they'll go back to killing each other again. But each one of them has slightly different views. All right? So they have the major signs, the minor signs, and everything, the events of the last days. Their prophecy, which is what we're studying in Revelation, their prophecy is second in ranking of importance to Muslims. If they rank the most important things they're supposed to know and understand, prophecy, their eschatology is number 2. Here's a passage out of the Quran, Surah 2. It says, it is not albir, which albir means piety, righteousness, and each and every act of obedience to Allah. It's not albir that you turn your faces toward east or west, but albir is the one who believes in Allah. That's the first thing. That's their most important. You got to believe in Allah. And the last day. That's the number 2 thing in their pillars. Okay? So this end time stuff's very important to them. The angels, the book, the prophets, and this gives his wealth. Okay? So their eschatology is very important to them. And it's just as developed as ours in a lot of ways. Okay? All right, let's look at these characters. The first character we're going to talk about is the Mahdi.
This is where it gets confusing.
Al-Mahdi is the central figure in Islamic eschatology. The word literally means the guided one. He's the one that's going to come back. He's not coming back necessarily to bring peace. What he's coming back to do is to force the whole world to worship Allah.
And I think this is actually referring to the little horn. It would be interesting to see if there's a correlation between the Mahdi and the little horn who usurps 3 other horns.
Become Muslims. That's his purpose. Now, between the 2 Shia and Shiites, the big difference here, let me go ahead and touch on this because I don't think I have it on the slide. The Shiites in Iran, that's in part of Iraq.
Isn't there a little guy right now claiming to be the Mahdi? I seem to recall recently coming across a video of this guy. Let me do a quick search here. What was that? What was it that I searched? I think it came up when I was searching for Bismillah, Mark of the Beast. Yeah, here. Yeah, this guy. There's no audio. Why is there no audio? Isn't this guy claiming to be the Mahdi?
A mark on the hand and the forehead, and Exodus is talking about a mark on the forehead and the hand. So the festival, how is it a mark though? It's a mark on their foreheads because it means that the law of God.
Yeah, his channel is the Mahdi has appeared.
God, and God himself and his jurisprudence is what guards and guides their thinking and their belief. And it is a mark on their hands because it means that the laws and God and the observance of his jurisprudence is what guides their hand, their actions.
Oh my
So it's their belief and their actions.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Isn't that what I say? That's what I say.
Yeah.
So if we take this same understanding of the mark on the forehead and the hand,
Yeah.
then the mark on the forehead and the mark on the hand in the vision would not be a physical mark, but it would be symbolic for whatever it is that God meant it to be. Revelation is...
Well, yeah, it'd be a belief. That's why we're, the challenge is now, what is that? What is that mark? Is it Islam? Is it in the name of Allah? Or is it some other form of idolatry that goes into the temple of God as God, showing himself that he is God?
They believe in what's called the 12th Imam. Okay, the 12th Imam. When Muhammad died prematurely, he had not set up a plan as to who would follow him, who would be his successor. And so in a nutshell, what happened was there was a split because one group thought that to be the successor of Muhammad, you had to be of his bloodline. All right? And his cousin ended up taking it over. That was the Shiites. And the Shiite, if you go back, it literally means the house of Ali, which is that house. So it was a bloodline succession. They went through 12 imams. They called them imams. The 12th one disappeared. But they claim that he was taken. The word they use is occulted. He was hidden. They literally say he's hiding in a well in northern Iraq, and when the time is right, he'll come back out. That's their belief. They believe that he will not come out until the world is in total chaos. That's why you used to hear these idiots, and they still do it, in Iran stand up and say, death to the infidels, we want to kill the great.
Is that why the Ayatollah went underground
a
couple weeks ago?
Whatever they can do to cause
just waiting for the world to be in total chaos before he comes back out.
Great chaos, he'll come back. It'll start the end time event. They control it, they think. The Sunnis, on the other hand, didn't think you had to be in the line of Muhammad. They thought that a council should choose the next leader and so forth each time. That's what they did. So that's where the split occurred. Sunnis have a slightly different view. They don't have these 12 imams. They've had different rulers over the years. Whoever ends up ruling the caliphate, like we showed you earlier, whoever is the caliph is the head of Islam. They believe also that the world needs to be in chaos, but they mainly believe that the caliphate has to be reestablished. And when it's reestablished and has control, then the Mahdi will come back now. That's the slight difference between the two. This Mahdi is sometimes referred to by the Shias, the Shiites, as Mahdi al-Mundahar, the Lord of the Age. And here's a passage for you. After the lesser signs of the hour appear and increase, mankind will have reached a stage of great suffering. That's the chaos. Then the awaited Mahdi will appear. He is the first of the greater signs of the hour. That comes from one of the hadiths. The rising of the Mahdi is equivalent to the return of Jesus for us in their minds. The hadith also says the world will not come to pass until a man from my family, whose name will be my name, rules over the Arabs. So whoever this Mahdi is, he's going to be named Muhammad. Imagine that. I think that's why all their mamas name them all Muhammad. It helps them out. Maybe he'll be the one. So that's the Mahdi. That's their central figure. To them, that's the return of Jesus to us. It's equivalent in their eschatology, okay? Now, let's look at, let's do some comparisons here. I want to show you how their eschatology, their beliefs on the return of their Mahdi, literally fits the Bible's view of the Antichrist almost like a glove. Okay? So let's run through these rather quickly. They say the Mahdi will be the ruler of the world. The Hadith says he will reappear on the appointed day. Then he will fight against the forces of evil, which is us, lead a world revolution and set up a new world order. Wow, where have you heard that before? Based on justice, righteousness, and virtue. Ultimately, the righteous will take the world administration in their hands. Islam will be victorious over all religions. One world order, one world religion. The Antichrist, the Bible says, Revelations 13:7, we read it earlier, it was granted to him to make war with the saints.
Okay, you know I have to give my obligatory warning. The word Antichrist is not used in Revelation 13:7. He's inferring that, which is one of the reasons why there is some confusion. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I should just give it up and simplify things down. But I think it's important to differentiate between the person who is the little horn and the religious belief, because it's the spirit behind the religion, the antichrists, that is what causes people to be sealed one way or the other. So the antichrist causes people to be sealed against what Christ came to accomplish. So I think it's important to make the distinction between the person and the religion.
To overcome them. That's talking about the Antichrist from our Bible. And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. Sounds interesting. Let's go further. The Mahdi will conquer Israel. The Mahdi will be victorious and eradicate those pigs and dogs. This is Muhammad's favorite words for the Jews, pigs and dogs. And the idols of this time, so that there will once more be a caliphate based on prophethood. That's the Shiites. As the Hadith states, Jerusalem will be the location of the rightly guided caliphate and the center of Islamic rule. This is why they're always fighting over Jerusalem, right here. Because they believe that that's where it's going to be centered. The Bible says about the Antichrist, it's basically the same verse I just read. He's going to make war and he's going to overcome. And authority over every tribe, tongue, and nation. All right, let's look at another one. The timing of the Mahdi. Rasulullah, which is another name for Muhammad, said, there will be 4 peace agreements between you and the Romans. Now, when he says Romans, he's not necessarily referring to Rome, because Rome was not in power when this was written.
So one thing also I think that it's worth taking into account is just because there's another religion that has an eschatology, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily true. Because they, you know, here's the thing about the Bible and about belief and about who's right and who's wrong when it comes to which side do you choose, because both sides make convincing arguments. And, you know, if we live in a world where there's evil spirits that are capable of, you know, potentially fabricating signs, miracles, and wonders, how do you know who to be sealed to? How do you know who is really the true creator of the heavens and the earth? And that's where our God is a merciful God, who's a God of justice and a God of mercy. And where there's witnesses, that's how you understand who to know and who to believe. Jesus has multiple witnesses, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the synoptic gospels. Those are written testimonies about Yeshua. Muhammad, he's only got his book that he wrote himself, is from what I can tell. But Yeshua, not only does he have several thousand years of prophecy leading up to him coming, you know, into existence in order to save us from death and cleanse us from our sins, but we have multiple witnesses. We have multiple independent writers who testify to him. And then he himself prophesied about future events. His father gave him the knowledge, the information about future events, and those things are coming to pass now, which is an additional witness to who is the true Messiah and who is the right way to go. You want to be written in the Lamb's book of life because he's here representing his Father, the right God, the one you want to believe the one you want sealed in your forehead and the one that directs how you behave and how you act. So just because they have an eschatology doesn't mean they're going to get things right, even if it does seem to parallel our own.
They were gone. He's referring to the West, which would be us or anybody in the West. The fourth agreement will be mediated through a person who will be from the progeny of Hadrat Harun. That is the honorable Aaron. He'll be a descendant of Aaron, the priest, Moses' brother. And will be upheld for 7 years. Aha. How long's the tribulation? And what starts it?
So this is not true based on where we are in the timeline. So the tribulation, I don't think we have that right. I don't think that we got that correct based on the way things are actually happening. So if you look at, what happened to my page? So if you start from the anchor point in 2017, we've already gone past 7 years. We're going on 8 and 9 years now. During this period of time, a couple of the seals were opened, 4 of them actually, and we're still in seal number 4. So we're getting ready to go into seal number 5. So this idea of a 7-year tribulation, this is one of the things I think that's going to catch people off guard, and why not paying attention and watching so with such detail is how you can allow the thief to come upon you like a thief in the night. So by not being specific enough about the Antichrist, which I see your chat about the woman who was saying that's a spirit, that makes me so happy that I'm not alone anymore. I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh, the 7-year tribulation. That's right. Yeah, we're already well past the point where there's going to be 7 years of tribulation. So there is the beginning of sorrows, which I believe is this period of time, and then you have the I guess we're still in the time of sorrows, but then you have a distinct period of time called the Great Tribulation. And by all accounts, it looks like it only lasts 6 months. Now, I believe that the reason why he's saying that the tribulation lasts 7 years is because the little horn makes a peace agreement for 7 years. So just because a peace agreement is made for 7 years, I suppose, we do have, where are we at? So we're 2026. And then 14 years is 2031. So if you, because God likes to work in weeks, so you have 1 week here and then another week here. We've only got 5 years left. So I suppose there could be a 7-year agreement that could take place, and 3.5 years they could. So maybe a 7-year agreement. So the Great Tribulation could last. So this is the start of the Great Tribulation. You have a 6-month period of time here. They could make a peace agreement here for 7 years, and then halfway through, break that agreement. That would put you into the bulls and the bulls and trumpet judgments in 2027 through 2031. So doesn't matter if they make a 7-year agreement. What seems to be important is that first 3.5 years, which we do still have time on the timeline for that. They could make a 7-year agreement, so that would make sense for them to for the Great Tribulation. So maybe there's a Great Tribulation. I don't know if it would make sense to do it here. They could make a 7-year agreement here, but then if there's a World War III or a Great Tribulation, it would seem like they broke that agreement immediately. So I would imagine they probably wouldn't make it until seal number 6, make a 7-year agreement, and then break it halfway through. Because you have to remember, these represent periods of time. So seal number 5 represents a period of time. It starts on February 17th, but it lasts 6 months. So expect things to ramp up. It'll probably be like the Al-Aqsa flood, to where there's an initiating event that has a global impact. And then it ramps up for 6 months and just continues to get worse and worse. And then that will probably be stopped by, oh, that reminds me, Suspicious Observers came on today in his live show. Again, there's variables outside of our understanding continue to accelerate the pole shift. He still doesn't think that it's anytime close, but it seems like every day he keeps saying it's accelerating, it's accelerating, it's accelerating. So I don't think anybody other than our timeline is suggesting that the magnetic pole shift is going to happen as early as 2026, but there are indications in the observation of the planet. So there's a period of time here, a whole year period of time, that this is probably, I imagine, where there will be a setup. So there's going to be, if there's a lot of destruction here from the Great Tribulation to where, and then this is when Christ comes back and says, put your sickle in and harvest the earth for it's ripe. This is where he gathers together those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. Then you would have, you would start going into God's wrath. So the beginning of God's wrath would start a year later, August 2nd, 2027. That's when you start seeing those bowl judgments. If Donald Trump and Elon Musk are indeed the two witnesses, I would expect them to still be here into the wrath, because their 1,260 days, the furthest out, doesn't end until July 3rd, 2028. So we still have a ton of stuff to kind of really figure out and nail down, but those are the variables that we're working with.
When the treaty is signed, interesting, huh? The Bible says, then he shall confirm a covenant for many with 1 week. We know that's a week of years, but in the middle of the week, he'll bring an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate.
I do, you know what, now that he says that, I do still think that could, I don't know, I think we need to find some more data on this, but I do think that was the start of the Great the start of here, seal number 4A. Because, and the reason I say that is because of Matthew 24. Unless I have something terribly wrong in our timeline. So Matthew, that's 26. Matthew 24. This right here. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, then let them who are in Judea flee to the mountains. I'm of the opinion that this is so Luke, where's the link to Luke 21? 21 right there. But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know its desolation is near. There is the possibility that was seal number 4. And I think that's further reinforced by this. Looks like it's seal number 5, the Great Tribulation. And then this is seal number 6. So that's how it seems as though those things fit. So it would seem as though we are in that period of time, that 7-year covenant. We just need to find when it started, I guess, to know for sure. But it seems as though we're in that period.
You see how that fits? All right, let's look at another one. This one, to me, is big. Mahdi will change the times and the laws. They say it's considered a divine command to use a Hijra calendar with 12 lunar months without intercalation, evident from the Holy Quran. They use a different calendar than we do now, Muslims do. According to Shalabi, the Mahdi will lead the Muslims in prayer, and Jesus will rule the Muslims. We'll talk more about.
Yeah, isn't February 18th the start of a new month? Isn't that? Oh no, that's Ramadan, right? Isn't that a festival? What is Ramadan?
That in a minute. According to the divine law, which is Sharia. So what they're saying is, in the end, what they're saying is, you're going to have a new calendar. You're going to have new law. You're going to be under Sharia law. All right? Now look at what Daniel 7:25 says. This is talking about that
the
Antichrist.
9th month.
He shall speak pompous words against the Most High. He shall.
So Ramadan is the 9th and holiest month of the Islamic calendar observed by Muslims worldwide as a 29 to 30 day period of fasting, prayer, reflection, and community. Interesting. Fasting, purpose, worship. So Ramadan is February 18th of this year.
Persecute the saints of the Most High, and he will intend to change times and law. Times and law. Calendar and law. See the fit? All right, let's go to the next one. The Mahdi will ride a white horse. This one right here says a lot to me, and this is one that the Grand Imam showed me. I had never really picked up on it out of the Hadith, but he showed this to me. In their writing, it says, I find the Mahdi recorded in the books of the prophets. He's talking about Scripture, our Scripture. For instance, the book of Revelation says, and I saw and behold a white horse. He that sat on him went forth conquering and to conquer. This surely is the Mahdi. Now look at what he's talking about.
Again, back to my point about just because somebody wrote that doesn't mean it's necessarily inspired by the creator of the heavens and the earth or directed by the creators of the heavens and the earth, because we do have a witness of the rider on the white horse, which is this eclipse right here. The rider on the horse given a bow with a crown who went forth conquering and to conquer. This seemed to be the start of the COVID pandemic. So I don't know if that statement about the rider on the white horse, the imam he was talking to, is indeed the Mahdi. Unless that's what it unless COVID is somehow linked with the Mahdi of Islam, that'd be interesting, an interesting connection.
Revelation 6, verses 1 and 2. Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the four living creatures saying with a voice like thunder, come and see. And I looked, and behold, a white horse. He who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer. All theologians agree that's the Antichrist. Muslim writings.
It's an uphill battle, people. We're going against all theologians.
Agree that that's their Mahdi.
This is why he said, if you do not watch, I will come upon you like a thief in the night. If they all agree, they're not even paying attention. They would never consider the fact that it could have been the pandemic. Although I know for a fact that there are actually quite a lot of people who have associated the pandemic with seal number 1. We're not unique in that regards.
So they are saying they are the ones. Got it? Keep going.
And by a lot, I mean like a couple dozen.
Muslim Jesus. Yep, Muslim Jesus. I said that right. The second event of the major signs, the first was the coming of the Mahdi. The second is the return of Jesus. But he's not going to be the Jesus you're expecting. He returns outside of Damascus. At this very time, Allah would send Christ, son of Mary, and he will descend at the white minaret on the eastern side of Damascus wearing 2 garments, lightly dyed with saffron, and placing his hands on the wings of 2.
So this is where, Babylon means confusion. And this comparing of the 2 Jesuses, well, I do agree that there are 2 Jesuses. I've talked about this many times on the show, that is part of the end time delusion. The trick is believing and following in a false Jesus, because it's just a name. And the way you know who you're following, the right one, is, like I said, the witnesses. And, did what they say come to pass? Which Yeshua is attributed with the end time events that are coming to pass now. So this is hard. This part with the multiple Jesuses, this is where it gets hard.
2 angels. In other words, there's going to come a time, according to them, that this Jesus is going to come back. 2 angels are going to have him by the arms, and they're going to sit him down on the ground outside this minaret, this mosque, and he's going to be back. He will be a subordinate to the Mahdi. In other words, he's not the number one guy, he's going to be the number two guy.
Interesting.
They say Jesus will decline the offer and invitation of Imam Mahdi to come and lead the Muslims in prayer and say his prayer behind Imam Mahdi. In other words, he lets the Mahdi pray first, showing that the Mahdi has more power, more authority.
Huh.
Are you seeing what's coming with that? Next one. Jesus, the faithful Muslim. The prophet said, verily, Isa ibn Maryam, that's Jesus, son of Mary, shall descend.
One of the reasons I've said that there are multiple Jesuses is because of where Jesus says, many will come to me in that day saying, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not perform miracles? Did we not do wonderful works in your name? Did we not cast out demons in your name? And he will say, I never knew you, which implies they were doing things in the name of another Jesus. And then there's also another indication of that in Matthew 24, where he says, many will come in my name saying, I am the Christ. In other words, there will many who will come in the name of Jesus claiming to be anointed in the name of Jesus. And right now you see this. There are people all over the internet claiming to have regular conversations with Jesus, being directed by Jesus, being anointed by Jesus. There's definitely multiple Jesuses, that's for sure.
As an equitable judge and fair ruler. He shall tread his path on the way to Hajj pilgrimage. That's where they go and walk around the, I just forgot the name of it. Anyway, in Mecca. And come to my grave to greet me. Listen, he's going to go to Muhammad's grave to greet him. And I will surely answer him. Muhammad's still going to be in the grave. He's not the Mahdi. But when Jesus goes and speaks to his grave, he's going to answer him from the grave. Jesus will institute Islamic law. I read this a moment ago. He will rule the people and lead the Muslims in prayer, rule them according to divine or Sharia law. So Jesus is going to be a Muslim according to them when he comes back. Next one.
Does somebody know, do they look at the Mahdi as God? So this is one of my arguments for the man of sin, the son of perdition, from 2 Thessalonians 2. So many tabs. Oh, hey, there you go. Happen to have it right there. 2 Thessalonians 2. Now, brethren, concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together to him, we ask you not to soon be shaken in mind or troubled, either by spirit or by word or by letter, as from us, as though the day of Christ had come. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day will not come until the falling away comes first. This is where they get the idea of a rapture, because in the Latin, this is rapturo, the falling away comes first. And the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition. Most people assume that just because the word man is used here, or son, that it's referring to a physical person. I do agree that that is one possibility, but at the same time, and when you look at what he does and how Christ eliminates him, it seems more like a religion, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Well, according to 1 Corinthians 3:16, or 1 Corinthians 1 Corinthians 3:16, and a lot of other places. Do you not know that you are the temple of God, and the Spirit of God dwells in you? If anyone defiles the temple of God, God will destroy him. This is what it means to be marked, to be sealed to the Lamb's Father's name. When you're the temple of God and God dwells in you, you are sealed to the Lamb's Father's name, because that's who you believe, that's who you serve. The imposter in 2 Thessalonians, he sits in the temple of God, you as God, showing himself that he is God, right here. I know I was quoting that different than what it says, because I was quoting a different version. Who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This seems like a belief in a man who is God. Now, I don't there's more than one religion that does this, that believes that a man is their God. And the other thing that I think kind of points to this being a religion or a belief is that he's destroyed by Jesus literally just showing up. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. So literally, when Jesus comes and shows up and says, I'm not that person, those who believe it, that's how he is destroyed. That's part of my argument for. So I wonder, anybody know, is the Mahdi, do they look at the Mahdi like God?
Jesus will be a Muslim evangelist this time. Like all prophets, Jesus came. Now, all these things I'm giving you are out of their writings that they consider holy, right? Like all prophets, Jesus came with divine surrender to God Almighty, which is Islam. When Jesus returns, he will personally correct the misrepresentations and misinterpretations about himself.
On that, we all agree.
He's going to come back and tell me and you were wrong.
That's just what I read.
He will affirm the true message that he brought in his time as a prophet, only a prophet, and that he never claimed to be the Son of God. In his second coming...
Yeah, see, that's not true. He did claim, matter of fact, more than anything, he claimed that he was the Son of God. And we've gone through that on this show before, on how he is the only begotten Son of God, and how that whole process could have potentially taken place through a process called game to Genesis. So I didn't realize they didn't even consider Jesus as the Son of God.
Non-Muslims will accept Jesus as a servant of Allah Almighty, as a Muslim, and a member of the community of Muhammad. That's your second beast. That's your false prophet, as we normally refer to him. Next one.
Nah, I don't know about that.
The
beast see, this is where he's kind of confusing. He did such a wonderful presentation, but to call the Mahdi the second beast, I don't think is accurate. I think he actually covered who the second beast was when he covered the angel's parable, the angel's riddle, and that the 7 and 8, that was the second beast, the beast from the land, because beasts, he even defined this, is typically representative of a government. So it's not a person.
Muslim Jesus will abolish Christianity. The prophet said, Muhammad said, there's no prophet between me and him, between him and Jesus. That is Jesus. He will descend to the earth, break the cross, and tell us he never died on it. Kill swine, that's the Jews, and abolish jizya. In other words, at that point, you'll no longer be able to be a Christian and pay the tax.
See,
either a Muslim or you die.
On this, I think that this is what I was referring to, that I imagine that if there is an uprising during the Great Tribulation, they'll allow Christians to pay a tax or die. And then after the Great Tribulation, that will no longer be an option. That's where they will enforce the mark of the beast, which is the mark of Islam, Islam being the beast. That would, I think, be... Yeah, so that would be when they actually start to enforce the mark of the beast.
Allah will perish all religions except Islam. He'll be a good family man this time. After he arrives on earth, Jesus will marry. He'll have children and remain on the earth 19 years after married. I'm not sure why 19. He will pass away, and Muslims perform his funeral prayer and bury him next to the Prophet Muhammad.
Weird.
Next. The Muslim Jesus in the Bible. Let me give you 2 or 3 here. We've already read this first one. I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, 2 horns like a lamb. He spoke like a dragon, exercises all the authority of the first beast, which would be the Mahdi in their case, in his presence, causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast. In other words, they would look at this and say, yep, that's right. He's going to tell you that you were wrong, he didn't die, and you got to worship me, or the Mahdi, whose deadly wound was healed. This whole thing about the deadly wound with being healed is a copy of Jesus' death and resurrection. You see what he's done here with this, what the devil has done, He's basically made his own Trinity now. He has the dragon, he has the Mahdi, and he has the Muslim Jesus. It's a copy. It's a counterfeit. Revelation 16:20.
I don't know if I agree with that one.
He says, I saw
the head wound. From what we've seen, I believe the head wound, it's either the United States being destroyed by the Biden administration and brought back by the Trump administration, or it's the head wound that we read about earlier where the caliphate was destroyed. Let me go find it. Well, it refers to the Islamic Empire, the Ottoman Empire. Let's see. No, did I actually read this? Where? Yeah, the fatal wound being the end of the caliphate in 1923. The wound heals when the caliphate is reestablished. That's another possibility. I don't know if I agree with this mimicking the Trinity thing.
3 unclean spirits like frogs coming out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouths of the false prophet. That's the Muslim Jesus. 1920. Then the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet who worked signs in his presence, by which he deceived those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. These two were cast alive in the lake of the burning fire. So he's going to get, this Muslim Jesus is not going to end well. Next. But there is a Muslim anti-Mahdi, equivalent to our Antichrist. Okay? See, it's copied all the way. Al-Masih, Ad-Dajjal, the Messiah, liar, deceiver. There's going to be a character in their end times that's going to be like our Antichrist. The Dajjal, is what they normally call him, will have powers of the devil. He'll terrorize the Muslims into following him, converting them into unbelief. He'll conceal the truth and bring forth falsehood. So in other words, while this Mahdi and this Muslim Jesus are reaching everybody, there's a bad guy on the scene. Now this last one I just put in here because I think it's funny. I'm sorry. This Dajjal is going to be the mule rider. He'll travel at great speeds, and his means of conveyance will be a giant mule.
So we learned from looking into Elon, the name Elon, that when riding a mule, it's indicative of a king or somebody of great wealth.
He'll travel the entire world.
So I don't know if there's any correlation with with the Dajjal or what.
I have nothing to do with that. Okay, let's look at another one real quickly. He will be Jewish and followed by women. This is the bad guy. The Jews await the false Jewish Messiah while we await. Now, this is them saying it. They await a false Jewish Messiah while we await with all his help the Mahdi and Jesus. Peace be upon him. Jesus' pure hands will murder the false Jewish Messiah. Where? In the city of Lod in Palestine. Palestine will be, as it has been in the past, a graveyard for the invaders. Meanwhile, women will also fall to the deviant line of the Antichrist because of their unawareness and ignorance of Islam.
This just hurts my brain. I can't. Is this legitimately written in the Quran that Jesus, the Jew, who fulfilled the commandments, one of which was not to murder, is expected to murder somebody when he comes back? What?
Call him an Antichrist there. Let's see. Give me one more. I think I got one more here. Okay. All right, we'll hold it right there then. All right. So, you see from their own writings how it fits. That's why I still believe Islam's going to play a major role in the end times. Here's the problem. Every year, 1st of September, we start hearing the same thing over and over again. What do we hear? Never forget. Never forget.
That and the Festival of Trumpets.
Can I tell you something? We have forgotten. They have not. Trust me, they have not. They are moving all over the world. They're working. And with anybody being able to walk across our southern border right now, they're here. They're waiting on their time. You will see it. I hate to say that, but you will see it. It will happen. There will be more of these problems. Now, here's the sad part. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this false prophet real quick. I got about 5 minutes here. This false prophet. I'm going to get in trouble for this one, but I'm going to say it. I believe the Antichrist is going to be a Muslim. But I believe the false prophet is the Pope.
Yeah, you know,
Think about it.
I do believe. I think he does have a point here, and I think that's something. I don't know. I'm kind of wish-washy on this one. So the Roman Catholic Church is one of the churches that does follow Yeshua. I'm of the opinion that it's Sardis, the church that doesn't do any good. Because of all the rituals and alms and payments and worshiping different saints and stuff like that. I don't think it's doing any good for Yeshua or God or people by just, it's basically a form of witchcraft. But there are still good people in there. I think that that's probably where Rome fits in the end times. Just based on seeing how much of Islam is associated with, you know, the end time events. I could be wrong about that. I think he does have a point, and it's worth considering here about Chrislam. He doesn't say the word Chrislam, but that's what he's referring to. You can look that up, Chrislam.
Pull those two groups together, you've got a majority of the world under one religion right there, and you say that'll never happen. It's already happened.
Yeah.
I've got a document right here called the Document on Human Fraternity. This document was signed in February of 2019. It was signed by Pope Francis, and it was signed by Imam Al-Azhar, who's one of the top imams in the world. They signed it in Dubai. To read this document, a lot of it sounds like good stuff, you know, peace, taking care of people, all this kind of, but there's one problem all the way through it, and it's simply this. They refer to one God. The God is the same, according to this document. Christianity and Islam.
And this is legit what's confusing, because when I first started looking into Islam, I was like, wait, so Allah is the creator of the heavens and the earth? Great, that's who Yahweh is. Yahweh is the creator of the heavens and the earth. Same God, right? Are we serving the same God? So come to find out that just because they say Allah is the creator of the heavens and the earth, the things that they claim that God expects of them with Sharia law and the way that they're just, it's a cult of hatred and death and murder. That is not the behavior, the actions of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So yeah, it is very confusing, and this is why we're focusing on learning about Islam and Muslims to start to be able to discern the differences and bring these things to the surface so that we're not deceived.
3, they claim it's the same God. Let me tell you right now, it's not. It's not. The God of Islam is Allah, and Allah was the moon god. That's why they have a moon on everything. The moon god goes back to a god by the name of Sin. Trace him all the way back to Sumerian times. It's Satan himself. Okay? This document, you can Google it. Just Google Document on Human Fraternity. You can Google it and read it, and you'll see all through it. Now, if that were not enough, the document alone talks about we're going to work together for peace and harmony. I'd like to no, I'm a good Coke commercial, right? Anyway, if that were not enough, show me that last. You got that picture that I sent you of the?
Yeah. So this is the Chrislam.
Now this is
thing.
an artist rendering, actually. This complex is being built in Dubai, and it's supposed to open later this year. I don't know if it's going to make it. Last I heard, they've had a few hiccups, but it's soon going to open. It's called the Abrahamic House, because they say we're all descendants of Abraham. What you've got here is you've got 3 buildings. This one is a building that contains Islam and the studies of Islam. This one is a building that contains the Judaism. This one contains Christianity. Sounds real good, right? Work together, but it's not. It's the headquarters for a one-world religion. It's being put together already. It's built on the very spot where this document was signed. It's already happening. Tells you how close we are. So, I haven't really talked about the 666 and the mark and all that kind of stuff because I'm just not going to get into it. I'm out of time. But can you put the picture of the guy, the very first scene up with the guy with the headband on? You see this? Where's the mark going to be put? On the forehead or on the hand, right? Almost every Muslim fighter will wear a headband that look like this. And what it says on his forehead is the Shaddai, they call it. It says no God, there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. To them, that is just like Romans 9:10 to us. You know, if you confess with your mouth, if you confess Allah's God and Muhammad is his messenger, then you're a Muslim. They all wear this, or they either have a tattoo on their hand. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the mark, but it could be. 666, people have been trying to figure that one out forever, and I've seen so many crazy theories.
There are a lot of theories on 666.
Both in Greek and in Hebrew, if you use grammatia, which is the numbers.
There's also a million pronunciations of gematria.
There's a word in both Greek and Hebrew for evil. The English evil. And in both of those, the grammatia is 666. So maybe he's just simply telling us this man's evil. Yeah. I don't know. Could be more than that. I'm just saying. So that's my case for all of this being for an Islamic Antichrist. Now, if you want to know more about this, I'm going to show you something. And have I got that picture of the book? Do you have that one? I don't know if I put it in there or not. Did I? This is a little book I wrote 5 or 6 years ago. It's called Islam in America. I don't have any paper copies, I'm sorry. If you want to go to Amazon, there's no paper copies, but if you got a Kindle, you can download it. If you got Kindle Unlimited, you can read it free. If you don't have a Kindle and you want it, if you'll email me at steve@theben.me, I'll send you a PDF copy of it free if you want it. It's going to go over everything that I just told you, plus a little more, if you want to read through it. That's the only reason that's up there. You can take that down. But that's my case for the Islamic Antichrist. It fits to me. Now, next week, Pastor's probably going to give you a little more traditional view. He'll talk probably about a revived Roman Empire. And that could happen. I don't argue this stuff with anybody. I'll discuss it, but not argue it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. You know. If you want to have a loving conversation and compare notes, I'm all for it. But if you want to just sit back and call me an idiot and tell me I'm wrong, I don't do those debates anymore.
Because it's just not worth it. Because what's happening today, to me, is more important than what's going to happen in 2 years, 5 years, 20 years, 100 years. We don't know. Right?
I believe we do know. So do you guys want to go into any more videos on the Mark of the Beast, or should we should probably call it there. We're at 2.5 hours. I have a feeling if I get into anything else, we're probably going to go for another hour. I've got more content to go over on the Mark of the Beast. Maybe that's where we'll pick it up tomorrow, is looking at the different things for the Mark of the Beast, or anything else you guys want me to cover. But let's do a little bit of a timeline update just so we know where we're at. So it would seem as though we're expecting seal number 5 to open up, which is February 17th, 2026. That puts us there. And by all accounts, the way the world is going, with the way they keep pushing off these agreements, the buildup of military assets, it seems like February 17th is a good candidate for something to happen that could mark the opening of seal number 5. And seal number 5 seems to be the Great Tribulation based on Matthew 24. The good news is it's short, which so is labor pains. Labor pains are short. They don't last a long time. So, in the big picture, 6 months is a relatively short period of time. And then it looks as though there's evidence there's going to be a lot of solar activity too. I don't know if you guys noticed that we're getting hit by radiation in the next 24 hours with some pretty massive X flares and solar flares. These are some of the things that are affecting the magnetic pole shift, which is why Ben Davidson got on the show this morning and saying things are heating up and happening. He actually made a special broadcast just to say that. So it seems like, seems to be, I mean, so far all signs point to we're here. Looking at, the start of the Great Tribulation, which doesn't last 7 years. It looks like it only lasts 6 months. And then there's going to be the magnetic pole shift. This will probably bring an end to the Great Tribulation. And then after this happens, whatever kingdom or government rises is going to be that second beast from the land. And then this would likely be when they start to enforce the mark of the beast on everyone who's not written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Reason being is I don't think the people who's written in the Lamb's Book of Life are going to be on the planet anymore. They'll have been harvested according to Matthew 24 and other things we've looked at. So that's where we are. That seems to be what's happening. Anybody got any questions, comments, anything you want to discuss before we go? Islam didn't start until 610 AD. I don't see any questions. Give you a minute to see if anybody has anything they want to ask before we go. Maybe while you guys think of some questions, I'll go through this conversation I had with Grok. So our core biblical passages and themes. So number 1, Jesus says, "I never knew you" in Matthew 7:21 through 23. Jesus warns in the Sermon on the Mount, not all who say, "Lord, Lord," or do impressive works enter the kingdom. Only those doing the Father's will. And he rejects them, saying, "I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness." This stresses a relational knowledge over outward acts. And then number 2, we got the parable of the 10 virgins in Matthew 25:1 through 13. Kingdom, we'll probably read these, and I'm going to start mapping these things out on this timeline here. The kingdom is like 10 virgins awaiting the bridegroom, which is Jesus. The wise ones bring extra oil because they're prepared. Let's see, the foolish ones run out during the delay, and the foolish plead, "Lord, Lord," but end up hearing, "I do not know you." So there's definitely a theme there in some of Jesus's teaching about those who know him and those who don't know him. The Lamb's Book of Life is written about in Revelation 13:8. Revelation 17:8, Revelation 20:15, and 21:27. So there's quite a few places the Lamb's Book of Life is referred to. Records the redeemed through the faith in the Lamb. Inclusion means eternal life. Exclusion leads to the lake of fire. Connected to "I never knew you" or "I do not know you." Revelation 14 through 20. There seems to be 2 harvests. The first harvest, Jesus reaps the ripe earth, gathering the prepared, which are the wise virgins, those who are written in the book of life, by seal number 6. So if they're removed from the earth, then when the second kingdom enforces the mark of the beast on everyone who's not written in the Lamb's Book of Life, that's because they're the only ones who'll be left on the earth. So there is another harvest talked about in Revelation 14:17 through 20, which are the grapes that are pressed in the wrath. So basically it's shown blood flowing. Judgment on the hardened. Not direct purification, but era allows refinement for endurees. So I think there is, and that could be associated with the Laodicean church, Revelation 3:14 through 22. The lukewarm, they think they're rich, they don't need anything, they're not hot or cold. He says, "Buy from me gold refined by fire." I wonder if that's not indicative of them having to go through the wrath in order to no longer be lukewarm. There could be a connection there with the 10 virgins who aren't prepared and they're told to go and buy more oil. And then Laodiceans are also, because they're neither hot or cold, they're told to buy gold refined by fire. So some of the things I'm looking into, some of the things we may cover. Any of you guys come up with any questions here before we go? Where was that place with those buildings? Let's see. Two Witnesses Live. I answered your question about the Mahdi. They don't see him as God, watchful, but as the guided one. Yeah, I did see that. Did I not repeat that? I saw your comment that they don't see the Mahdi as God. I think you're talking about the Kabbalah, which is isn't that in Saudi Arabia? I think that's what you were talking about. Yeah, the Kabbalah or the Kaaba, Kaaba. Kabbalah is something else. The Kaaba. Or were you talking about the 3 buildings, which are also, I believe, in Saudi Arabia? End of days will come, Father, our time. And it's a religion. So what about the past? Or that's what you're not making any sense, Fix. Is that a question? All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate you guys being here. If you like this content, hit that like button. Subscribe to the video if you want to get notifications when we go live. The live broadcasts are not monetized. You don't have to deal with any commercials or breaks or anything like that. You get to watch us straight through. But when we cut these up into shorter segments, we do monetize those because YouTube will not push them out to new people if we don't. So it's a necessary process with YouTube. So if you want to join us commercial free, join us here Monday through Friday at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time, or 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. And with that, I'm going to leave you guys. God bless and shalom.